What is up guys, Andy Forrest Team Runner here, and today we're going to be comparing the Saucony ENDORPHIN Pro to the Saucony ENDORPHIN Speed. So today we have our hands on 2/3 of the highly anticipated Saucony ENDORPHIN collection. We have the Racing Pro and we have the Training Speed. I had so many questions on both of these videos saying, is the Pro worth the extra money? What's the speed like? How does this compare to other shoes? And today I wanted to kind of combine all of those questions and answer them for you guys. I needed a bit more time for testing in this, but now we've done full testing in both of these shoes, I feel that I have a good idea as to where these two sit in my rotation and as to how they can sit in yours. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and we'll start with the Pro. Okay, so just before we dive into the pros and cons of the ENDORPHIN Pro, just to make it clear, this is not a technical overview. The technical overviews for both of these shoes can be found in the first impressions video. You're more than welcome to head back onto the channel and search up Saucony ENDORPHIN Pro first impressions, Saucony ENDORPHIN Speed first impressions. You'll get a full tech overview of the shoe and my first impressions in that video. Today, I'm just comparing these two shoes, giving you guys the pros and cons and hopefully answering some of the questions you have. But just to give you a very brief overview of the weights and stack heights and things like that, in my UK size 13, I did go true to size. Comes in at 268 grams, 9.5 ounces, and it has an 8mm stack height, 35.5 in the heel, 27.5 in the forefoot. Now, it doesn't look like a massive stack height, to be honest with you, but it's getting close to that 40mm standard that the World Athletics Commission, or whoever they are, set to make it a legal shoe. So it does come in to that legal bracket, which is great because it's a phenomenal racing shoe. To give you a brief history of my usage in this shoe, we've got just over 50 miles in it. I've done workouts, long runs, I've even done a 10k time trial. If you go back onto the channel and search up the Lydney Lakes 10k, it's only a few videos ago, maybe 10 or 20 videos ago, I raced the 10k in this shoe, and I chose this over the Nike Next Percent. There was a very good reason for that. I absolutely love this shoe for the shorter distance over the Next Percent. The Next Percent I choose for a marathon, half marathon I'm unsure of yet. I'm going to use the Next Percent in my upcoming half marathon time trial, but certainly 10k and under, this is the shoe right now that I'm going to reach for. So in terms of pros and cons over the Speed, and we'll answer some of the questions at the end once we've gone through that. The pros of this shoe is its lightweightness. Its lightweightness, if that's a word. It does shed a little bit of weight from the Speed. There isn't that much of a weight difference in there, but where it does shed weight, I think it sheds it very well. The upper is super thin, and when we come onto the Speed, you'll see the extra layers that make it a little bit heavier. The upper is super thin, super lightweight, super breathable. It's a 3D fit, so it just hugs your foot beautifully. I have a wide foot, for those of you asking about wide feet. If you've got super wide feet, I can't guarantee it's going to be great, but I have what I would call quite a standard wide foot. My foot towards the toe box area does get very wide, and I have quite a thin middle section around the arch of my foot, so my foot really does fan out towards the end, and it fits really well in this shoe. The gusseted tongue, well, semi-gusseted tongue in here, I don't know if you can see down there, again it was all in the first impressions. The semi-gusseted tongue just wraps enough around my midfoot to feel nice and secure. The one downside with this shoe that I did find, well, two actually. One, the heel counter is super flexible, not enough support in there. That's fine because it's a racing shoe, you don't need anything in there, you just need to fit it nicely. But I did get a bit of heel slippage in the first couple of runs. Solved that issue predominantly with this extra runner's knot here. We have the extra eyelet chain, which is great. So that's that problem solved. The only other thing that I found, sadly, was a little bit of slippage in the wet weather. This rubber outsole isn't the most grippiest, so I was a little bit cautious around some of the corners. I know a couple of you have found it out. Matt, actually, the Welsh runner who I run with a bit, he found it out first, warned me of it. When I tested it out in some wetter conditions, I did indeed concur and agree with him that it might not be the grippiest shoe in the wet weather, but on the whole, it is an absolutely phenomenal piece of kit. Why do I love it so much? Mainly because it's reminiscent, it's like an upgrade of the Hoka One One Carbon X. I love that shoe for its firmness and the way that it glides you through the gait cycle with its Meta Rocker design. And this speed roll technology, which is where you land, rock and roll through, the whole curvature of the underside of the foot is meant for you to land and roll through effortlessly. It does that with a beautiful style. That combined with the Power Run PB and the carbon plate just makes for just such an incredible smooth ride. Smooth as butter is what I'm going to say. So from a Carbon X perspective, it is an upgrade. I'd say I would choose this over the Carbon X. Again, a few of you asked that. And that's why I love this shoe. The next percent is a lot softer, spongier. I don't mind that, but when I'm racing, I want something a little bit firmer, a bit snappier, a bit more responsive, and I feel like I get that from this shoe. So in terms of pros, it's definitely the snappiness, the way you roll through the gait cycle. The upper on my foot is absolutely fantastic, and of course, the weight. And moving on to the Speed, the training buddy of the Pro. The pros and cons of this shoe are very, very similar to the pros. But there are a couple of other things that I would like to highlight with this shoe, because I had some questions, simple ones like, would you pay the extra money to get the Pro? Which is your preference between the Speed and the Pro, which we'll cover very shortly once I've gone through the overview of this. Again, size 13 UK, true to size, I went absolutely perfect. 284 or 86 grams, 10 ounces on the nose for this shoe. So only a tiny bit of weight gain, which is awesome. 33 mil in the heel, 25 in the forefoot, 8mm heel to toe drop. So you've lost a couple of centimeters heel stack height, but that's it. There's nothing more. It feels very, very similar. So the pros and cons of this shoe, the heel counter area is a little bit more comfortable than the Pro, as to be expected, because it's not an all-out racing shoe. Despite the fact that I think you can race in this shoe, there's just a little bit more comfort, a little bit more plushness in the Speed than there is in the Pro. We've got a little bit more rigidity in the heel counter area due to some of this plastic and overlay material. So you can see you can't quite push it down as flat as you can in the Pro. The one con that I did find with this shoe is still, it's slightly different. I got heel slippage in the right foot of the Pro, which I sorted with the runner's knot. With this foot, I couldn't get quite a tighter lockdown in the heel, so my heel was moving laterally as much as left to right, a little bit more as up and down. I did kind of get that sorted over the runs, not by using the runner's knot, it just, I got a better lockdown through the top. So that was just, I think, teething issues, but it's still there slightly, and I think you guys might experience that when you get it first time. Just keep persevering with the lockdown, and I think you'll get it. Where this thing adds a little bit of weight, as you can see, is the upper. We have that extra, very, very fine overlay material of mesh there. It is literally translucent, you can see right through it still, but it does add a little bit of weight. We have a few more little plastic overlays going on in and around here, which is going to add to the weight. The eyelet chain is literally exactly the same as in the Pro. And I think again where it adds just a tiny bit more weight is the nylon plate over the carbon plate. Outsole rubber is pretty much exactly spot on the same pattern. So as I said, it's literally gained half an ounce, 20 grams, nothing, and that's just predominantly going to be in and around this heel counter area. I think just with that extra cushion padding and this bit here. The pros of this shoe certainly are the nylon plate. It is a lot less harsh. I do notice it less in this shoe. It's a lot more natural in this shoe. So if you've raced in carbon plate shoes or you've run in them, you know that you kind of get that natural propulsion feeling as you toe off. You kind of feel like the shoe just springs you, it just pushes you. It's a little bit less prominent in this shoe, and I think that's down to the fact we have a nylon plate. Very reminiscent of my OG Zoom Fly that had a nylon plate in that. It moves you through the gait cycle beautifully, again with the speed roll tech and the Power Run PB midsole, but you don't quite get the springiness, yet the times that I've run in this shoe are just as good as the Pro. So in that aspect, it's kind of like, is the carbon plate doing much different to the nylon plate? Well, actually, yes, it is. Although despite the plates being different material and my times not being any different, the nylon plate is a lot less harsh on my foot, and therefore that's why this thing is certainly geared up more for training than it is for racing. So in terms of pros, the main pros of this shoe is it's very much like the Endorphin Pro. It's pretty much exactly the same. It feels just as good. It's a great training partner. If you can get the lockdown sorted in here and you love the Pro, then this thing certainly is worth considering if you want to not burn out your pros too quickly. So on to the final verdict. Which one of these shoes would I choose? Well, I'm going to make this slightly different. I'm going to answer a couple of your questions which you've asked over the couple of videos. That is, which one would I pick in terms of if I had to have one in the rotation, and is the Pro worth the extra money than the Speed? Well, I'm going to ask a question back to you. First of all, let me answer the first question. I would pick the Pro simply because I got this shoe for racing. That's what I want. There are a lot of speed shoes on the market, shoes like this that will do a similar job to the Speed. This thing does it better than most. So for me, this is kind of a duplicate shoe that I have in my rotation. I've got other shoes that I can compare this to that I might do another video on at some point. Of course, the reason I like this shoe is because it's a perfect training buddy for this thing. So when I'm going to gear up to race in this shoe, I'm going to be using this thing a lot more just to get used to the feel of what it's going to be like racing in this. So the last couple of workouts in particular, I'd certainly reach for the Speed just to get myself acclimatized. So what it's going to be like on race day. So in terms of choosing, I'm going to choose a Pro, but is it worth the extra 35, 45 pounds, whatever the difference is between these two shoes? Well, my question back to you is, what are you buying the shoe for? I would not buy the Pro to train in. Personally, I would buy the Pro to race in. End of the day, racing shoes are going up in price. £190 UK pounds, $200 I think it is. For those of you guys in the US, it's a lot of money. You want to be saving these shoes for races. I am going to try and put more miles in the Pro because I want to test out its durability. But for the regular consumer, you're buying a race shoe to race in. So you want to be saving this thing for races. So if you're looking for a race shoe, then I would choose the Pro over the Speed. For those of you asking me, would you buy the Speed to race in? Yeah, I would buy the Speed to race in, but I would personally, there is minimal difference, but mentally, and this is a purely personal thing, mentally, the Pro feels more like a racing shoe. This just feels like a fast trainer. This feels like everything about this, the light upper, the very flexible heel counter, just everything about it screams racing shoe. This thing, when you put it on, screams trainer. So I would always opt for the Pro. If you're looking for something that you want to train in that's not going to beat your feet up, the Speed is the way to go. The nylon plate is going to be a lot less harsh on your feet. I mean, this isn't harsh, let's be honest, but the nylon plate, you can barely feel it. So it's a lot more comfier in terms of going the duration. I would edge the Speed in the long run test to the Pro just because my legs felt a touch better after running in the Speed. So it depends what you want it for. And the question back to you, as I just said, is the Pro worth the price? What do you want it for? Racing, Pro, training, Speed. It does exactly what this says on the tin. Yes, they're very close to each other. Yes, they overlap in a lot of ways. But me, myself, having tested lots of shoes out, I really can tell the difference between these two shoes. I know a lot of you that maybe don't test so many shoes might not be able to notice the difference, and you'll be able to pick this thing up and race in it and it'll be brilliant. And don't get me wrong, this will be a fantastic racing option for a lot of you. But if I had personal preference and money wasn't an issue, I would choose the Pro. So I hope that's answered some of your questions. If you've got more questions on these awesome two shoes, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you for your patience on this video. I know you guys have asked for it. I wanted to get a bit more testing in the Speed before coming back to you and giving you my overall thoughts on the Endorphin collection. Let me know in the comments below if you have either of them, what your thoughts are, what your experiences are with these shoes, and if you love them just as much as I do. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I will see you on the next one. Until then,